What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to this episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius, and boy, do we have a special guest. Erin Claire Jones is in the house. What's up, Erin?
Hi, so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so pumped for our conversation today. How's your Friday going?
My Friday's it's going pretty well. I spent the morning making applesauce with my toddler, and it was a joy. And now I've been teaching, and now I'm podcast.
Amazing. So, guys, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory here on how I came across Erin and her work. We were talking briefly about it before the show, but so I don't think I've talked about this on the show, but you guys do know, the audience knows that I'm like a strengths finder, like a human assessment, like fanatic. Myers-Briggs, Colby Index, Strengths Finder. If there's an assessment, I'll do it. And this started back when I was 18. I was in a record store back when they had CD stores and stuff back in the day. I graduated high school in the 90s. And so I was in some music store back before you just downloaded everything online. And there was this little card that says learn about yourself. And I fill out this whole card and I put it in there, and I get a phone call, and I end up going to this place, which ended up being, Dianetics. What's the thing? Oh my God, I'm going to say Scientology. So
yeah,
I get baited into a Scientology audit. I'm 19. I think the guy was homeless or something. He starts beating me up on whether I want to change my life or not. I'm literally a sophomore in college, and I'm I do, but he's just trying to sell me a book and get me to buy some stuff. But that just goes to show you, I was willing to fill out a card, drive 45 minutes from my house to meet with what appeared to be a homeless person who tried selling me on a book.
Oh my God.
This I'm 47. It's been multiple decades in the making, but I love that stuff. And I have a friend who talked about human design, and she said, I know you love the 3D stuff, Darius, Strengths Finder, and I had built a company with 1,000 employees where every employee knew their strengths, and I was essentially the strengths trainer for all my employees, and I use that as a tool a lot. And when I got introduced to human design, I was like, oh my God, this is the woo-woo version of Strengths Finder. This is so cool. And my friend who had introduced me to it, she had said, I know a guy who used this on every single employee in his company, and he literally built a $300 million company that he sold for literally hundreds of millions of dollars. And he credited all of it to human design.
Wow.
So I was that's cool. Again, not knowing anything about it, but I got it. And what I was telling Erin before the show was, I think I've spent 100 hours on this assessment now, and it never ceases to amaze me. I've done it with my family. I've done it with my kids. And lo and behold, my phone must have been hearing me talk about it. Erin got into the algorithm and started showing up in my social feeds, and I was like, oh my God, she's an expert on this. Let's get her on the show. So I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh my gosh. I just cannot wait to hear more about your journey into human design. It's always endlessly fascinating how people are actually using it. So I'm just really happy to be here.
Awesome. So I'm going to do your formal bio, and then if you don't mind, we could do some origin story, and then we'll go from there. Does that work for you?
Love it.
Awesome. So you guys, Erin is a leading expert and educator in human design, as I mentioned before, founder of the Human Design Blueprint, and author of the book, How Do You Choose? A Human Design Guide to What's Best for You at Work, in Love, and in Life. And so, I'm assuming you didn't just 10 years old decide you want to get into human design. I know it's been around for a while, but, how did you, give us your origin story. How did you get to where you got to?
Yes, I don't think this was ever the plan. I still kind of look back and I'm how did I end up here? But I did. So I would say from a very young age, I was definitely endlessly curious about people. My parents always assumed I'd be a therapist. I just always had a lot of questions. I think understanding myself and other people always felt like a top priority. And I just couldn't help but want to do that. But by the time human design discovered me, I was working in startups in New York City. And I was really enjoying it, but it didn't really feel fully aligned with where I wanted to go, but I was having fun. And this was in 2015, 10 years ago now. And I was at a friend's gathering in the Lower East Side and sat next to a stranger at the party. And he basically asked to read my human design chart. And I had never heard of human design. Human design was incredibly fringe then, but I was always going to say yes to somebody offering interesting information about me. So I was like, tell me everything you see. And he proceeded to give me, I would say, one of the most insightful, if not the most insightful reading I'd ever received. And it felt like somebody put words to my inner experience in a way that I had never experienced. I think similar to what it's done for you. I was just like, oh my God, how do you know this? And like, I've never had words for this. And I would say it was equal parts confronting because I was living opposite everything my design said. And so it felt very confronting to have somebody say there's actually like another way to do things. But there was a part of me that was like, yeah, that actually sounds a lot better. And then he ended that conversation by saying, Erin, I think you're meant to do this, which is totally bizarre. Hearing this from a stranger, I was 25 years old. But, you know, I was super intrigued. And so I ended up talking more with him, and he and I ended up building a business together starting in 2015. And he was my first teacher. And I launched my own practice 2 years later, but it's just wild looking back, you know, because like I said, human design was not popular. No one I knew what it was. And yet there was just something that made a lot of sense to me. And it's been so incredible over the past 10 years to really watch it grow. And I've had many ups and downs in my own business and in my own life as like trying to get this thing out into the world. But now we're here 10 years later. You know, I just came out with a book with HarperCollins about human design 3 months ago. Like, I now have over 43,000 clients. Like, it's just been a wild journey. And I just look back and I'm like, how did that even happen?
That's
so
amazing.
That's how it all started. It all started from an invitation from a stranger that somehow felt right.
That's amazing. So for listeners who are like, what is this human design? Darius just said it's like the strength finder for with woo-woo magic. You know, can you, I mean, I had done some research, like, cause I actually didn't know the origin of it. And I never thought to look, that's very like uncommon for me. Normally I'm like such a curious person. So I went and looked it up and I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't realize that it's been around for this long. And it's kind of really like a combination of a bunch of different, I guess, like disciplines. Can you kind of give some background on what is human design? How was it created? You know, a little bit of background.
Of course. So human design is a system based on your time, date, and place of birth, like astrology. And then it gives us all this very practical information around how we can actually transform our lives, you know, how we can show up in relationships, how we make decisions, how we collaborate better with other people, you know, where our strengths lie, also how we can navigate our challenges. So I will always say it's equal parts mystical and practical. It is very mystical. It comes from the stars, and it's incredibly practical in actually its application. And it's so specific. It tends to like just articulate things, like I said, that people are like, how would you ever know that? And so it really is like so nuanced to who we are and how we move through our lives. The origin story is incredibly mystical, as you probably discovered in your research. Human design has been around since 1987. The founder was a man named Ra Uhuruhu. He's no longer alive, but basically he had this very mystical experience where he was walking home one night in Ibiza and heard a voice. And the voice said, it's time to work. And for basically 8 days and 8 nights, he received all this information. He channeled this information and then spent the next 20 years building it out. And so it doesn't have any scientific roots, but the way that he received it was very much that human design pulls from many different systems, like you said, from the I Ching, from astrology, from Kabbalah, from the chakra system. So there are traces of so many systems that have been around so much longer than human design. But I will kind of just end that description by saying, you know, and I said this to you before we started recording, what matters most to me is not whether human design is true, but whether it's useful. So even if you're a total skeptic and you're listening and you're like, this sounds way out there, like, I just want to say, I hear you. And if there's any part of you that feels intrigued, I would just encourage you to listen and see if it feels useful. Because I can't tell you the number of skeptics and companies I've worked with that are like, Erin, this feels way too woo-woo, this feels way too out there. And yet there's a piece that just makes sense to them. And they're like, now tell me everything about my kids and my partner because this just feels useful. So, you know, that is the reason I keep doing it, is that I just have seen it be so useful in people's lives.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so first of all, you know, the audience is probably picking up on this with me because of the, you know, I have equal, you know, I'm just like a super, like, I'm interested in so many different things.
Yeah.
So they'll hear me talk to, like, for instance, the guy that founded, like we had, the guy that founded NPS. right? Net Promoter Score, which is a Bain assessment. He came on the show.
Yeah.
We had Moby, the artist, came on the show. We've had the former president of Starbucks on the show. We had Robert Edward Grant on the show, who's talking all about sacred geometry, right? So this is the part of Darius that's like believes in the mystical, like to explain the unexplainable. And again, like yourself, I'm a person like, tell me about me. I like to hear it, right? But when I did this assessment and really read through the entire thing, I was going through a really kind of transformational part of my business life, and I was being misunderstood a lot. I had been turned on to a group of books by the Arbinger Group around like, how are you showing up, and essentially, how am I affecting others? And so I was just in this open place where I'm like, hey, I love information. Like, tell me more about me so I can show up better. I pulled this assessment, and there was some stuff in there where I'm like, how can this, like, this is so specific to your point. For me, it was around, I must inform others, or else, and I'm getting into like some of my human design, but like, I'm a manifestor. So I just do. I'm an initiator. I do. And I knew that about myself. I'm like, oh yeah, Colby Index, I'm an 8 on Quick Start. I just do. But I must inform. And I was frustrating everyone around me. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what's happening. I'm not informing enough people. That causes all this friction in my life. That was probably one of the most practical things I got from it, where I was like, oh, but to really have a better understanding in a mystical way of how my aura, my energy, how I show up in the world. And if you don't believe this stuff, I'm like, then yeah, you don't have to believe it. To your point, for me, it's been super useful because when I know that I show up a certain way. What's funny though, and I had a question for you before, and I just to in full disclosure to the audience, I'd given Erin my human design my information, so she pulled my human design. So we are going to, like, if you're cool with it, Erin, like dig into my human design. Is that cool?
Oh,
right, so the audience can get like they could see firsthand, like, and I'll validate or invalidate what the findings are. But one of the things that I thought about, and I've thought about a lot and this is a big question for you, is and you don't know this about me, I'm a twin. I have a twin brother.
Wow.
And we're cesarean, meaning we were kind of born at the same time, within like a minute of each other. So I'm always like, man, we're so different though. There's an essence to us that's very similar, but we are very different people. So like, I when I thought of human design, and maybe we come to this question after you go over mine, but I was like, well, how does that work? Right? Like, if it's based off time, place, date of birth, we're twins. Like, we are very different in a lot of ways, but we also have a lot that's the same. How's that explained in the human design? When I read it, I'm like, yeah, maybe that's Mike, maybe it's not. I don't know. Let me think about it. So how do you want to do this? You want to do mine and then talk about my brother, or do you want to do my brother first?
Let me answer that question, and then we'll talk about your design. So I think it's a great question. It's one that I get often. I think that, human design is not a predictive system. It's not going to look at our chart and say like, hey, you're going to be an entrepreneur, or you're going to get married at this age, or you're going to have kids or not. It more helps us understand our mechanics of how we move through the world. Like, okay, are we a fast decision maker or slow one? Are we sensitive to people's stress or to people's emotions? Like, is our gift this or this? So, I find that people can have very similar designs, almost identical designs in the case of you and your brother, and yet the way you express it in the world can be radically different. The things you're drawn to initiating, the things your intuition are pulling you towards. So I think what would actually be most interesting is actually having a conversation with him to see how it resonates. Because I've also sat with friends where I looked at their human design charts and I'll read a thing and I'm like, there's no way this is them. Like, there's no way. And then I'll share it with them and they're like, absolutely 100% yes. And I'm just like, oh, I don't understand their inner mechanics. Like, that's only something they'll understand. And then also, I think the other piece that I would share is that human design really shares all the areas in which we are the most influenced by other people and how that can influence our lives. And so even though you guys have the same birth time, the ways that you guys have taken in influences and conditioning of others is going to be radically different.
Got it. Okay. And I kind of thought, I thought that, but it was interesting as I start to see I could see how it applies differently for us, but how we use it, like we're both manifestors. We manifest in different ways, right?
Yes.
Like because we have different skills, and but we both are really good at creating from nothing. Like literally, you give us like a toothpick and like a piece of rope, and we both will create with it.
Of course. Yes.
And so that was something that I was curious about. But I'd love if you don't mind, like, if we can go through my human design and kind of teach the audience. And look, in full disclosure again, like, there's a lot to this, and it's not super like I would say it's complex in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so it's not something where like once you learn mine, that means it's going to mean a lot to someone else, because theirs will be very, very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'd love for you to kind of do your thing with my human design. It's something that I've spent a lot of time on. I'm really curious what what feedback you would give.
Yeah, let's do it. And I do find actually going through people's charts is actually really useful for other people, just because it gives people a sense of the information it offers. It's hard to speak about human design generally because it is so specific. So before we talk about yours, I just want to, remind you, and I know you know this, that I am not trying to convince you of anything. So if anything I share doesn't feel useful, supportive, resonant, one, say it. I think it's useful for your audience to hear that, but also just like let it go. And then the things that feel useful, supportive, resonant, take those pieces forward.
Awesome.
So
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. So if you guys also want to look up your human design, you can look it up at humandesignblueprint.com, and you can see if you are the same type as Darius, because there are 5 different types. So you are a manifestor in human design, which is super cool because it's just 9% of the population. Are either of your kids or partner manifestors, or is it just you in the house?
I think both of my kids are manifestors.
No way.
Yeah. My recollection, I can actually pull it up because I have a picture of theirs too. But
wow.
I'm gonna try to do it without getting distracted.
Yeah.
But yeah. My recollection was my wife is not.
Yeah.
And both of my boys are all manifestors.
Wow, that would be so wild if that was the case. Okay, so manifestors are, my little 11-month-old is a manifestor, and she is 11 months old and very young, and I already see it in her, and I'm just like totally freaked out by it. So, because it's amazing. So manifestors are very powerful people that are very much here to kind of initiate and get things started. They are really here to kind of like pursue their ideas and bring new ideas to life. These are not people that are really meant to tread a path that's been walked before, or kind of do what others are doing. They're very much here to do things their own way. I feel like a core value for manifestors tends to be freedom. Freedom to do what they want, when they want, how they want. And so they often do really well working for themselves because they can establish that freedom. But they also actually do really well, I have found, working for bigger companies if they're given like a domain to be in charge of. A really key piece of manifestors is that your energy is very bursty. You might find that there are like periods where you're so efficient, can make so much happen so quickly, followed by like a period where you've got to rest and be alone. So for you, it's not about consistent momentum or energy, but kind of honoring these ebbs and flows. And then also, to the point you shared earlier, a big lesson for manifestors is around communication and keeping people in the loop. Manifestors are often very prone to just like go off and do their own thing because that is just the most natural thing for them to do. And yet when they do that and not let people know, there can be some real friction, whether it's people you're working with or family. And so just like keeping people in the loop of what you're choosing tends to make your life a whole lot easier. And it's not about asking for permission or explaining yourself. It's just like, heads up, I'm moving this direction. I'm coming home late. I've made this decision. And I guess the last piece I'd share, and then we'll keep going, and I'll pause, but manifestors are so inherently disruptive. Like they can't help but see new ways of doing things. So I think one thing that I've really seen manifestors struggle with at work is if they're at companies or working with people that aren't valuing that gift. Where it's like, where they're like, I see all these better new ways of doing things, and like their CEO or leader like really doesn't respect that. And so then it can become they can become like a threatening force. And so I think manifestors being in a space where that kind of disruptive perspective and innovative perspective is valued is so essential for them.
Yeah.
How's that all landing?
Yeah. Well, so that's what I realized was every time and one of my themes, emotional themes, is anger, right? Which we'll talk about. But every time in my life I've been in positions where I don't have the freedom to create.
Yes.
It's like rage.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm not being understood. I'm not,
of course.
like if I'm with a business partner, because I've always been an entrepreneur, like that's not
Makes
like,
sense, yeah.
like really valuing that. I'm like, this is not going to work.
Yes.
And so a lot of freedom. I need to be able to create. I feel dead if I'm not manifesting and creating. Like literally, that's the word. The burst thing was interesting. I didn't know that. I'm actually like right now in between projects, and like kind of I'm in my hermetic mode right now.
Yeah.
And so like, but I'm like, oh, I need to go build something.
I get it.
So yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one core piece that I forgot to share there is that like manifestors are really good at starting things, but not always at completing the thing that they started. And so manifestors can really burn out when they're like, I've got to complete the thing that I started. But honestly, like their energy is best used at the beginning. So in an ideal world, they can bring new things to life, hand that thing off, delegate it, move on, like bring another new thing to life. Like there is such a powerful energy they have to begin and start.
Yeah, that was also something that I appreciated, because I was like, yeah, I love starting stuff. I hate maintaining. I hate it.
It's not your role.
No. And I'm like visionary, like let me go build. And then I need managers or people that like maintaining and like making small improvements. I'm like, you go do that. I'm going to go build something else.
Yes.
And so that was a good, and the complete thing was interesting too, because whenever I've received criticism from other folks I've worked with, they're like, your complete is not our complete. I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to do it. You should. I
don't want to complete. Totally.
I'm like, you want me to turn 0 into? I'll take it from 0 to 1. You take it from 1 on. I don't want to deal with it after that.
Yes.
So
totally.
I'm a 0 to 1 person for sure.
Yes, and I think it's just to your original point of your friend mentioning that person who built a company, of how useful it is to really understand the designs of the people that you work with. Because if you're like tasking a manifestor with completing and finishing everything they started, like it's going to make them very angry. It's going to make you very disappointed. So when you're able to really like understand what people's gifts are, it's like it is such a gift to have a manifestor in your team if they get to be in positions of innovation and change. So one piece that you mentioned, which I think is so essential, is that every type in human design will have these signals that reveal when they're on or off track. And they're such simple feelings and yet so revealing. And so for manifestors, when they are in alignment in their life, it tends to manifest as a feeling of peace. And the way that I've seen peace be experienced by manifestors, you'll speak to this better than me, is just like, it's freedom to do what they want, when they want, how they want, like in a way that feels very much on their terms. Whereas when things are off track, out of alignment, need to be changed, it can manifest as a feeling of anger. And anger often is like a disempowered feeling. It's like, I am not in control in the way that I want. Like I don't get to be as free as I want. And I feel misunderstood by other people. I feel creatively blocked. And, anger is not a thing to avoid. It's just a signal that something needs to change in your life. And just to give you guys a sign of another type, like for me, when I'm off track, it manifests as bitterness as a projector. I'm not feeling recognized or appreciated. So we'll all experience all the feelings, but they're kind of like speak to our core, like we are in alignment or out of alignment. Have you noticed those feelings in your life?
Totally. And it was funny when I saw that. I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Like for me, and it's, I do all sorts of work on myself. So I was just I'm doing a project right now where I spend 5 minutes a day and I'm like writing and journaling. What do I want in my life? And then the first word that came up was peace. And then I described what it looked like. And so I was like, yeah, peace is a really important thing for me. And like, if I don't feel at peace, like there's a lot of turbulence. So I was like, yeah, whatever I do, there needs to be peace. Freedom's a part of that. And I know that the one theme, like everyone has their, what to your point, signal. I'm like, oh, it's like deep rooted anger that comes up from deep within me. If things are like, that is for sure. And that's something I've learned to manage and control. But like, for me, it's like peace and anger were like spot on. I'm like, oh yeah, like that's like, I don't even have to think twice about that. Those are really obvious to me.
I know. It's so crazy how simple they are and yet so revealing. And again, just to give you guys examples, we've got success and bitterness for projectors. We've got frustration and satisfaction for generators and manifesting generators, and disappointment and surprise for reflectors. So just all pretty different. The next piece I want to talk about is something around decision making. I find this to be one of the most useful parts of the chart. This is why I called my book How Do You Choose? Because I just think we're making decisions every day. And I think really understanding what our design reveals and how we can do that easier is super helpful. So you are what we call a splenic authority. Again, if you guys look up your chart, you'll see your authority listed. So as a splenic authority, it means that you are meant to make decisions fast. You have a quiet, kind of subtle knowing that just arises. And the minute it comes is actually the minute you're meant to act, or the minute you know that you can. There are many people like me that have to sleep on things and feel into things, but you're just subtle, fast, and quick. People might perceive that as impulsive, as rash, and yet you just know immediately. I guess the one piece I would add for you is that your intuition is likely quite quiet. It sounds like you're pretty tuned into it, but often people that have this authority really need practices that kind of help them quiet down and hear themselves, because it's very easy for them to kind of get their own voice to be kind of drowned out by all the noise and opinions of the people around them.
Yeah, it's I'm going to tell you two things that have happened in my life many years ago before I had a language for this. And before the show started, I had said, like, I was telling Erin that I always said that my body talks to me. Right. Like, so I'm very somatic and like literally like people are like, I make decisions from my head, and I'm like, I do that too, like prefrontal cortex decisions, but like literally it comes from like in like where my spleen is. Like there's like literally like information coming from like in where my abdomen is, and I didn't realize that this was a thing. And so two things have happened to me in my life that were what you're talking about that are really big decisions. I went to bed one night when I was dating my girlfriend, woke up, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna marry her. Like literally woke, like did not have that thought when I went to bed. I woke up and was like, oh, this is happening.
Wow.
And the second one was I was sitting, so that was like in 2005, and I've been with my wife now for we've been married for 18 years almost. And we've been together 23 years. But and so I was really young when that happened. And then the second thing was a few years later, we were at dinner on New Year's Eve with friends, and I had like literally this moment where I'm like, oh, we're gonna have a kid this year. And we had been married for 2 years, and I'm like, and I looked at her, I'm like, hey, we should have a kid this year. Like literally, like it, and like one moment before that, I wasn't like contemplating this. By the way, it wasn't like, hey, should we? You know, like I knew I wanted to have kids, but it was like oh, it's happening now. Oh, and God, I told her, and like literally, we got pregnant, or she got pregnant 8 weeks later. So. Yeah.
But that's it. That's the just like kind of quiet, subtle knowing. And so it's just like people can so easily ignore that and not listen to it. And for you, that's just how your truth comes. And just to give people context, like I said, some people are meant to sleep on things. Other people have to talk things out. But for you, it just comes in the form of like a voice, a whisper, just like a subtle, instantaneous knowing that cannot be denied.
Yeah, it's 100% spot on. By the way, both my kids are manifestors and my wife's a generator.
No way. So do you notice that manifestor energy in your children, that kind of very initiating, powerful, provocative, disruptive, powerful vibe?
Yeah, it's interesting. So my younger son, he has my, I say he's like my spiritual doppelganger. And my older son, so him, it's like more obvious. With my older son, he's more like reserved and he's super artistic. And he's my physical doll. He looks like me, but his essence is different. But he shows it like he's always creating quietly. So cool. One's loud, one's quiet, but they're both always creating. So it's cool. Interesting to see. Yeah.
And I think it's honestly probably so inspiring and amazing for them to have you as a father, because I just think it's really cool. Like, it feels like to me, you're a very aligned manifestor. You like embrace this very initiating, I'm going to do my own kind of thing kind of life. And I feel like it probably will give them such permission to do that too.
Yeah.
So, okay. Why don't we talk about something called your profile? Have you dug into your profile? You're 6'2"?
I have, but I'd love for you to talk about it because I think it's pretty awesome.
I agree. So again, if you guys want to look up your profile, you can at humandesignblueprint.com, look at the profile. The thing that's listed next to profile, it will look like a weird fraction looking number. And I'll talk about what I'm speaking to so that you'll see if it's in yours too. I'm a fellow 6'2", so I'm a little bit biased towards this profile. So if you have a 6 in your profile, so for anyone who's listening, if you're a 4-6, a 3-6, a 6'2", what am I missing? A 6'3", this will also be applicable to you. And this is actually such a fun time to talk to you, given the age that you are. Yeah. So 6s are very natural role models, teachers. You know, these are people that really inspire others with their perspective. They're kind of natural authorities. People often will come to them to kind of learn all the things that they've learned in their life and what the wisdom they have to share. It feels like you're probably in a natural position doing this. But what's so interesting about 6s is that they tend to live their life in 3 phases, where the first 30 years of their life is like trial and error galore. It is not a time to figure things out, but just experience and experiment as much as possible. 30 to 50, the time you're in now, time I'm in now too, is really a time where you might find that you kind of zoom out a little bit. You just get a bit more perspective. And you also like are really processing all the things that you've been through in your life. And you might find more and more people coming to you for your wisdom. We call this phase as being on the roof. You just kind of have this elevated perspective, but you also might want to hermit and step back a little bit. 50 is actually when you're meant to hit your prime. So you're kind of edging up to this like really extraordinary phase of your life where it means that you're really meant to kind of come off the roof and be like in your purpose and, you know, in the biggest way ever. Like, it is the best time to share your gifts with the world. And you might find that you inspire others so much by just being yourself. Like you're a teacher and a role model, not because they're like, I'm the boss, listen to me, but like just because you are it, you like have learned the things and you become so embodied in that. And so, you know, I will say I discovered this when I was 25 and I was like, why do I have to wait so long to be like a role model and leader, which is silly looking back on now but I will just say for the 6s, like it's just meant to keep getting better and better. And the phases are meant to keep changing. Like I look back to my phases pre-30 and I was like, that was just a different human, a different life. And so, there's something really magical about kind of embracing these 3 phases. And I think for you, just knowing that like so much of your gift is really pulling back from it all and really offering a very objective, optimistic perspective on where things are and where things are going.
Yeah. I'm on the roof, as you say, and I'm in this phase where I'm like, oh, why do I have to wait to 50? But I'm at this like moment also where I'm like, I've had this epiphany, which is like, if something that I need to be fully sovereign, yes. And so everything I do needs to be fully aligned with my essence, or else I'm not going to do it. So I'm saying no to tons of things right now, tons. Like I'm like, nope. I'm like, I love you, but I'm not doing that. Like, and things that I would have said yes to, no question, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, as you kind of get older and more established, you have more opportunities, if you've created value around you. So it's a lot of saying no right now because of that. And I'm like, okay, like I feel it already, what you're talking about. But yeah, I'm 1 through 30 was a lot of trial and error. And like, this has been a lot of consolidation the last 20 years from 30 to especially the last 10. And I'm like, all right, I feel like I'm getting ready for something pretty spectacular, and I'm excited for it.
And you're probably feeling it. Like I loved like talking to people in their 40s in this profile makes me so excited, because I so often hear exactly what you're sharing, where like in the 40s, like their lives actually tend to transform so much because they become like allergic to and like intolerant of anything that's like not fully aligned. Like it feels like there's this part of them that just like knows they're meant to be a role model for others. So they're just kind of doing the work to become that. The other part of your profile is the 2. And so for those listening, if you are 2-4, 2-5, a 5-2, a 6-2, this is also true for you. There are 2 pieces to the 2 that feel most relevant. The first is that there's a very hermetic energy to you. Time and space alone to just be in your own uninterrupted flow is so essential. So it's not just like, I'm going to be alone meditating. It's like just doing your thing, like following what you want to do and seeing what you're drawn to. So having that space and being able to ask for it is really, really key. Before I talk about the other piece, is that a true experience for you? Yeah.
So I'm like, the word that came up is like violently independent. Like, I'm like, I need space this summer. Because I'm in between projects, my family and I went to, we did 8 weeks of travel.
Wow.
And we went to Europe and Africa, and we did like a big project, but I was with them 24/7 for 56 days straight. And my like hermetic side was like, I was so burnt out and uncomfortable. And I already had an understanding of what this is. And maybe you'll talk about it next, but I'm like, I need to like recharge like by myself.
Desperately.
And my brother's the same. Like he's like this like ADD hardcore. He'll work to like sit down to the bone, but he goes quiet and goes away, and you don't hear him. And I'm the same way. I always tell my friends, I'm like, if you don't hear from me, that means like things are going down. I need space.
Totally.
So, and I'm a hardcore extrovert, so I'm always out there like extroverting, which is it's the opposite kind of. But no, I need to be independent, and I need my like alone time to create for sure.
And that's just so true for manifestors in general. That time of just like, I'm just going to disappear and like let the new ideas come up, because the thing for you is, if you are in the constant doing mode, you actually become quite unavailable for new ideas to come. So it's often when you make yourself unavailable to others that you create space for the new ideas to bubble up within you. So the other part of the 2 is that you are somebody who's meant to just be like pretty innately talented at things. Like you might just find you've got your own way of doing things that you can't really explain. You just like do it in like the Darius way, and it just seems to work. And so when it comes to work, you're very much meant to follow the things that just feel really innate to you. And so often 2s don't assign worth to those gifts. It's like, I can't get paid for that thing. Like I can't do that thing. It's like, it's actually exactly what you're meant to get paid for. It's like, so 2s are very much meant to pay attention to kind of what feels most natural to them. And it can be useful to even ask the people around them, like what they see as their gifts, because they might be not so aware of them.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like that's one of the reasons why I'm an entrepreneur, because my last real job I ever had, I worked at the White House when I was like, and I was like, this is so structured. This is actually kind of a funny story. Like to your point, I get to the White House, I'm 22, and it's a bunch of kids from like Ivy Leagues who are nerds, and I'm like not. And I was a little older than everybody, because I had just graduated, and this is like my internship coming out of college, and I'm in a room with a bunch of like sharp-elbowed kids who are trying to, like, politic their way into a better position as an intern. And I'm like, and we're like literally doing like data entry. This is in the year 2000. And I'm like, I'm not doing any of this. I was like, and so I did it for a few days. I'm like, this is not like what I thought I signed up for. And I'm not super, now I'm in the White House. I'm working for the President of the United States, which is cool, but like doing literally like work that's like a monkey could do. I should not be the one doing it. And so this opportunity comes up where they do an election for president of the interns, whose job will then be to literally throw parties for the interns for the rest of the summer and like get full access to the West Wing. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to crush this. And so it was me versus some kid from Harvard. And I was something like, well, if you guys want to party and have fun this summer, like pick me, right? Which is me being me. And I win. And the rest of the summer is me doing things in my essence. I get full access to the West Wing. I get all these great things happen and literally I don't have to do my job anymore. And so I was like, and I love that story because I'm like, that's to your point. I love that story too. I did it that's the Darius way, right? Because
totally,
like, there's no way I would have, if you said head to head, I have to go compete with these other people based off of like just innate talent of like doing busy work. I'm like, I'm gonna get killed. That's not me. And so I found whenever I'm put into a box where I'm supposed to like do something a way that others do it, it's pretty brutal and it's bad. And so anytime I find myself there, I'm like, how do I get out of this? Because this is not going to end well. It's not good for me.
Yes. Right. And it's just like, you're just not wired that way. Like, you've just got your own way of doing things in all the ways. And there's also a way that's just meant to feel easy. Yeah. Where you're like, oh, this is just like a way that feels a lot more natural. And it's often the way that people want. You also, like, I'm looking, you have like the gate of being a leader and inspiring trust in people. So that's no surprise. But another piece that came up just hearing you talk about the family trip is we also all have ways of kind of processing information. This comes from a part of our design called the definition. Again, you guys can look yours up. You are what we call a single definition or an independent definition. It just means that you're incredibly independent. You're somebody who probably feels a lot of wholeness in your own energy, and you just love having space to just do your thing. And I do find that with this definition, sometimes people can be quite threatened by that independence, where it's like they might want you to need them more. And so it is so important to kind of be both in work environments, but also in relationships where that very independent nature is respected. And so I find that these people often are not seeking partners because they like need to be completed, but just because they're like, I'm good. And like, but together, like, you elevate all these things. So like, let's do this together. But having space to just be in your own independent flow is just so essential. And these people do pretty well working independently. Again, this is not collaborating with others, but I think having that space to themselves built into their days and weeks is pretty integral.
Yeah. I'm like you're like just describing me. And and I picked a partner, my wife, who was super honoring of my independence. She liked it. She's like, oh, like we were people that like literally, I'm like, I'm gonna go out by myself. She's like, oh, cool. Like, no, we go out to a party, she'd leave and I'd stay, like, which like a lot of people would be like, I would never let my spouse or significant other do that. I'm like, oh, well, we would never get married. like that would be bad news for us.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So, and like, so it was really interesting that I picked a partner that was very cool about my independence, and she has it too. And I'm like, yeah, go do your thing. Like, I don't need to be there, and I always watch people who like couple where they're like, wear the same outfits and they're always next to each other. And I'm like, I would shoot myself.
Totally. Well, yeah. I think that this is all just such a good reminder. Like, in terms of partnerships, I sit with so many couples, and I feel like so often there's this friction because people are expecting others to be similar to them. It sounds like you and your wife might be similar in this way, or at least she just really respects you. But so often human design gives us the language like, oh, we're just different. You're not rash for making decisions fast. You're just spontaneous. You're meant to be. And like, you're not like wrong to be independent in the way that you are. That's just what you need. So I do feel like human design brings so much compassion, not only for ourselves, but for the people closest to us. Like, totally. My husband and I are so different, and human design has just been such a useful tool to be like, oh, you're not wrong, you're just different, so totally. And my family, we have 4 different types, so it's just like human design is so useful in that way. Okay, I have another piece I want to share, which is one of your strengths.
All right.
This comes from a part of human design called channels, and they basically are just like innate superpowers that we have, and this one just feels very relevant to this podcast in general. So you have the channel of being a witness, of being a listener. Like, you are somebody who is meant to just draw out stories and experiences from people that they don't often share. Like, there's just this thing that you do, and you might also just enjoy being in the position of witnessing and learning. And like one of your gifts is kind of gathering all these stories and experiences from other people and then kind of really distill like what are the gems from those stories that can help other people and how can I find creative ways to share those, you know? And so you are meant to be such a storyteller, but it very much is like your ability to just collect stories and kind of be a record keeper and see what wisdom can be learned from experiences in a way that can benefit many more.
The audience is like, yeah, that's called Darius's Friday episodes.
Really?
Because I do solos on Fridays, and solos I collect stories all the time, and then I'll percolate ideas, and then I'll share that. And then Fridays are just me doing a solo, talking about what I learned from other people, and it's always storytelling. And I was in a group actually. I'm in a couple like men's groups where there's like 8 of us, and we meet once, and we fly all over the place, meet each other, and we go really deep. And I'll tell these stories that are like 8 minutes long. They're like, I didn't know where you were going with that story, but then you like wrapped it up in a bow, and it like made this like point that like was really poignant at the end. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't know where I was going with the story either, but I knew what I wanted to say, you know? And so it's like literally like, again, the audience is like, yeah, those are Fridays, they're solos. But in my life, that's how like when I read that about myself, I'm like, yeah, like stories define my learning, and I want to share that with other people, because I'm like, I wish I had known that. I wish someone had taught me that. Right. So I feel like it's like, why would I not share that? Like this story changed my perspective, or I connected this dot that like literally blew my mind. And like, I get to hang out with people like you all the time on the show. So I'm like, I know my bar for like learning is pretty high. And I'm like, if this blew my mind, it must be really cool.
Yes.
You know? So yeah, no, that's spot on for me for sure.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk about a challenging area.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So there are areas of our design that speak to where we are most influenced by others, and often where we can kind of get taken the most off track. So they're called our open centers. You probably are familiar. I would say that these are not inevitably challenging areas, but they're kind of lessons that we're here to learn. So there are 2 that I'm wondering. Okay, let's do your emotional area. So you are somebody, according to your human design, that is incredibly empathic, very sensitive to and attuned to other people's feelings. This is such an amazing gift, but it also can be quite overwhelming at first, because sometimes these people can really struggle, especially when they're young, to kind of discern between other people's feelings and their own. And they might try to like fix or resolve the people's feelings around them because they just feel them so deeply. And so really cultivating kind of this healthy detachment where they can witness others without personalizing it is pretty essential. And then the other key learning for these people is that they also might sometimes be prone to avoiding confrontation and not fully speaking their truth because they just feel so much, where it's like, I don't want to rock the boat because then they're going to feel a thing and then I'm going to feel a thing, and like, I'm just going to skip it. And so one of their big lessons is really learning how to kind of move through that discomfort, say the hard thing, and know that saying the hard thing often just feels so much better in the long run than like holding it in, which just takes up so much more space. So I guess I'm curious, like, do you feel this empathic nature? Has it felt like a shadow in the past in your life, or do you feel like it's more just a gift that you embrace?
So for better, for worse, I think I grew up in a pretty hardcore environment. Like there was a lot of like abuse and stuff in my family. And so I learned to turn that off.
Yeah.
Just because it was so intense, right? So like what I always tell people is like, I'll numb out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually I have it, but then I have this other thing that like blocks it, right? And so that hasn't been as big of an issue for me, except I still feel it, right? And so where I've had to work through it is like there's a lot of like internal like that would manifest out as anxiety for me, right? So I've had to work on anxiety because of what you're talking about. I think because I don't know what it is. Like there's a part of me that is super, super assertive, like blunt, and it gets me in trouble. So the part where I'm being afraid to, like, there's a part of me that's not afraid to say what's on my mind at all.
Yeah.
To a point where it creates conflict and issues. Yeah. But again, like because I'm so sensitive, that creates a lot of anxiety for me. So I've had to learn how to. That's probably been one of the biggest trials for me, is to like manage that, because of how it's. If I was to do what comes naturally, it would be to just be empathetic and like make people feel good, right? And not make them feel bad. what's came out because of upbringing more than anything else is like this this passionate like standing up for myself.
Yeah.
And then that muscle has been built where I'm like overly assertive, where I'm like, I'm never not gonna say something. Like, and if we fight about it, it's like, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Now, if it's someone I love, this is for people I'm maybe less attached to, but for people I love, then yeah, no, it's the same. I think my upbringing is in conflict with this part of me, and it's so again, what's happened is that it's created a lot of anxiety that I've had to figure out how to work through.
Yes. And I think I find it to be useful sometimes to kind of be reminded of these pieces that we're like, this is hard. I'm still working through it. This is a lesson. And like, these are some tools to work with it. So I appreciate you sharing all that, and I actually really appreciate about human design that it doesn't just be like, you're amazing, which it does in many different ways, but it also is like, this is a thing that you might struggle with. And so, I know that we probably don't have much time left, but one other piece that I would say you potentially might struggle with, and I'm curious about, is like, you're somebody who's gifted with like a tremendous amount of willpower. Like when your heart is in something, like nobody can stop you. You can like move mountains to make something happen. And it's actually a pretty rare gift. But where I see this get people into trouble is when you expect others to have the same level of willpower as you. And so I often see these people be a little bit disappointed in others, like their capacity to make things happen or do certain things because they just can't do it quite as well. And sometimes people then will not, like people like you might not delegate because they're like, I'll just do it better. So I'll just do it. And then that ultimately burns them out. So I would say another big lesson for you is really having high standards, but not being unrealistic in your expectations of how people can get things done, because it probably will look quite different than you.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. When I was younger, I was disappointed a lot, and then I just like kind of realized I'm different, and because I have, and we didn't talk about this, but like my sacral energy is really low, right? And so because I don't have that, so I have to delegate. So I was like, all right, good is good enough. I don't have the energy to do it. Yeah. So I need to like figure out how do I start to create systems to manage the standards up. And I've gotten very good at that, because I don't have the energy to do it myself. So exactly. But like without even having a language for this stuff, I'm like, oh, that's why I get so tired. Oh, that's why I get disappointed. Right. So I agree. Totally.
And then the last piece that I would just share, because I just feel like you do it so well, is like one of your gifts is your open-mindedness. You're like supposed to be able to look at things from like a bajillion different sides and perspectives and see the like subtleties and nuances of issues in a way that a lot of people can't. And to me, just meeting you today, it feels like you're very much in the gift of that. But the shadow of that would be very like rigid and defensive and like I have to have an opinion and convince everyone. But your gift is really kind of holding all the perspectives at once.
Yeah, it annoys my partisan friends in politics.
I'm sure because people are like, I want you to have an opinion, and like your gift is like, I actually understand where everyone's coming from and I can talk about it. And so again, such a useful thing to know, because these people often feel a lot of pressure growing up to be like, I have to have an opinion. And it's like, no, like your gift is like holding it all.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that. I didn't pick up on that one, but yeah, that's like you've crushed it. This is why I love human design. I'm like and why I like these assessments, especially for people in relationship and how I use it in business. In business is relationship, is what it's like, especially if we're building teams. Family is a relationship. Like I want to understand why people are who they are, and like not sit there and try to change someone. Like work within their essence, work within their energy, and like make sure they're set up to succeed. Yeah. And if there's a gap where it's triggering me or like making my life hard, like let's like talk about it, not from like, oh, you suck, I'm good. It's like, hey, we're just different. Let's figure out where the middle ground is, or where do I need to give and where do you need to give to make things better? So this is like, I know we're out of time, and I know you have a lot of cool stuff going on that I want to promote to the audience. And I want to get to the greatness question, but thank you so much for this. This was like, I was hoping we would do this and we did it. And like, this is so I love hearing about myself.
I get it. Most people do. I love talking about people. It's just so funny. I've been doing this for a long time and it just doesn't seem to get boring.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So Erin, anyone that wants to learn about like the book, the assessments, I know you have an AI project you guys are working on. Like, why don't we talk a little bit about that and then we'll go to the greatness question.
Perfect. So if you want to learn more about your human design, like I said, you can look up your chart at humandesignblueprint.com. We also sell custom guides there that are totally personalized to your chart and kind of give you everything you need to know about your design. You guys can use the discount code Darius for those. That's at humandesignblueprint.com/guide. I also have a new book out. It's called How Do You Choose? A Human Design Guide to What's Best for You at Work and Love and in Life. It is available anywhere books are sold. And my vision for the book was really around how human design can be practically applied to your relationships and career. So it's full of so many stories of people and case studies and examples. And it's meant to be a thing that you open up and you're like, God, I don't know what to do next in my career. I'm struggling with my partner. And you can look and you're like, oh, this is what my design says about it. So it's super easy to read and very practical. And then I also have courses. We're coming out with a new product very soon. And you can follow me if you want to kind of follow the news on Instagram at Erin Claire Jones and also at Human Design Blueprint.
Awesome. So I was going to tell you, one of my sons is a 6'2", and my wife and my other son are 1'3". So
very different profiles, but very complementary actually. Like one of the most harmonious profiles to have 1'3s and 6'2s.
All right. So let me ask you a question on the AI thing that you guys are building. Like, like I have a friend that built like her own GPT that like has a lot of this stuff programmed into it. And so I've played with it where I'll take our human designs and put them in. Is this a thing where it's like I have a team or I have my family and I want to go in and I want to like basically talk to your AI about, hey, like I'm having this situation with my wife. What do you think? Like, and it'll give it to me in terms of a human design like answer. Like talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go to the greatness question.
Yeah. I mean, I think that people are using AI for obviously all the things. I think that, you know, this is still not something that's out, but I think that like, I find that most people are kind of just looking to use human design to figure out how they can like live their best lives. And they also want to learn all the things. But the information is pretty spotty and often pretty inaccurate on current models of AI. So I think that we're really trying to kind of build a one-stop shop where you can kind of come ask all the questions, and based on all the things, it can give you insight into how you can best work, how you can best navigate a challenge, how you can best build a team. So and there's so many more exciting things that I can't talk about now that I've just never seen AI do with human design. So it really is meant to just be a resource because people are using it that way already. It's just that the information right now on the internet is pretty inaccurate and also not comprehensive and also not always expressed in the most empowering way. So it's really kind of offering a very practical, empowering place to use it as a lens to every part of your life.
Love it. So when do you guys expect that to be live for people to start playing with and using?
Hopefully soon.
All right. Well, I'll take that.
I'm going to let you know. You're first to know. I promise.
All right. Well, when you guys launch that, if you want to come on the show and talk about it, we can do another show.
I would love that.
That's an opportunity as well.
Yes.
So ready for the greatness question? I'll get you out of here.
Ready. Yes.
All right. Erin, what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
I feel like one of my biggest barriers is just the fear of failure and it not working. You know, I remember launching my first human design business and I couldn't figure out how to make it work. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to take a job. I'm done with human design. And I think the way I overcame it was, honestly, it was my partner being like, you're not done. You failed. So what? Try again. So I think it's been being reminded by the people around me that like, it's not always going to work out and you can step back up. So I think it's very easy for me in my own energy to forget that it's okay to just keep trying. So I think having the right relationships has been a really influential way in helping me just remember that I can do things in the moments that I doubt it.
I love that. Erin, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been like I said, like I love hearing about me. You were so gracious to do my profile and to teach our audience all about human design. Like I said, this has been the tool that's changed my life, and I'm really excited for the work you're doing. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. As leaders, we like to share this with your teams, share this with your managers, share this with your loved ones. Go check out all the work that Erin is doing. And until next time, peace out. We love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.